There's even a story in Dark Mission. It's in the book, and we can't second source this. We can't prove it. But Richard, why don't you tell the story? There was one source who did tell you what had happened to the astronauts after they got back.
Well, as you know, I have these intelligence community individuals that have talked to us from time to time. In fact, parenthetically, when we were on break, I had a call from the source who told me forecast years ago that the whole Bush return to the moon thing would be basically a lie. It would be a cover. And he said the concept is called in the industry, and he wanted to make very sure I said this on the air, because he said other people are listening to you tonight. He just didn't tell me who they are, but I can imagine, as I'm sure you can too, George, right?
Absolutely,
so
all the time.
The term is called hide in plain sight, and the other term is called plausible deniability. Let me give you a scenario. Let's say as part of Bush's and Griffin's plan to go back to the moon, Apollo on steroids, contracts are let to Boeing, and Lockheed to build this spacecraft. Spacecraft are incredibly complex. They have electronics, they have touch screens, they have rockets, they have, carbon fiber composite shells, they have millions of parts, all of which have to work perfectly to keep the crew alive and safe and going to and from the moon, right?
It's beyond the 40-year-old technology
Absolutely.
We had when we went to the moon. Okay.
State of the art. Now, who's to say that all the innards, the guts, the heart and soul of a real spacecraft that is being built for Apollo on steroids is actually not being built for the secret black ops anti-gravity spacecraft that actually can go to the moon in 30 minutes?
We don't know that.
And the guys working on the equipment also will never know that. When it goes out the door as part of their job, they lose track. And it can go anywhere on the planet or even off the planet and be assembled into a spacecraft anywhere by God knows who, and the public, accountable NASA press political system loses track. That's what he meant by hide in plain sight.
Isn't that what the Germans did during World War II? They had everything constructed and built by different facets and groups, and not one of the other groups knew what the other was doing?
Where do you think our guys learned it? Which is in the book.
Well, where do you think most of the scientists came from originally?
Scientists and engineers. The American space program was built on the German industry and ingenuity of Werner von Braun et al., and thereby hangs an enormous tale.
No question about it. Same Werner von Braun, who apparently told people that he believed in the Roswell story.
Yes, and said he had seen the crash and the bodies, and there is a sign that was taken in the 1940s when they were at Fort Bliss of the bunch of, German Nazi scientists and engineers standing around a curio shop in, I think it was Las Cruces, which was just down the street from White Sands. And what's always amazed me about that sign is that, there's this big swastika on it, a big fat swastika, which in America after the war was kind of bizarre. I mean, didn't we beat these guys? Number two, the sign itself, if you look carefully, and there's a very enlarged, nice photograph in Dark Mission, the sign itself is in the shape of a flying saucer, a UFO, with a swastika on it. Now, if you know anything about the actual derivation of the swastika, you know that the swastika is actually a code, a visual iconic code for the same kind of transdimensional, hyperdimensional physics and technology that I've been talking about on this program for the last 10 years. And it's the way spacecraft really have to fly. It's how you really create anti-gravity. You use that physics and the technology derived therefrom to get something off the ground, and you don't use rockets. Well, again, the ludicrous idea that here we are in the 21st century, and the best we can do as a follow-on to the shuttle is to go back to Apollo. I mean, it kind of reminds you of a certain movie, doesn't it? Through my friend, who was actually in a position to do something, and the weird politics of JPL will only later, decades later, as we explain in Dark Mission, are the bizarre, weird, complexified politics against finding life anywhere, resident at JPL, understood and laid out for all the readers to understand with us, and finally make sense of something which has not made sense to me for over 30 years.
Well, part of me wants me to say you're both absolutely right on. Another part of me, this incredible patriotic part of me, says it can't be this way, Richard.
Yeah, but, George, it has nothing to do with patriotism. This isn't the country. These are hijackers. These are pirates. These are thieves. These are greedy, selfish, small-minded people, men, who have basically decided to own the future of humanity for themselves, to keep us from ever knowing how incredible we are, and to basically, benefiting from any of the extraordinary science and technology that's waiting out there for us, the human race as a whole, to go and benefit from. So it's not about patriotism. It's about rooting out remember what was said to Nixon, the cancer on NASA, the cancer on the Constitution. These are unconstitutional people doing unconstitutional things, and they've been doing it in plain sight. Remember, hide in plain sight for over 50 years.
Oh, man. Michael,
well,
you agree with this?
George, again, there's other examples of what we're talking about here. A few years ago, I believe it might have been the Spirit rover, pulled up to a rock that they nicknamed, an area they nicknamed Guadalupe. And on that rock was what appeared to be a fossil. It clearly had segmented little sections, just exactly like an old form of life that used to inhabit the Earth called a crinoid would have. And absolutely this thing had all the earmarks of a fossilized life form. And not only did they take a very, very close-up picture of it, they then proceeded to take out the rock abrasion tool, the rat, and grind it into dust. Rather than study it, rather than say, wow, look at this really interesting thing we found on here, they ground it up. So we've got that experience. We've got the fact that they also changed color on some Mars Express images from orbit, Mars Express images from orbit.
Welcome. Have a nice day.